but it's more about, um, really at the end of the day, it's about creating a safe place for creativity to really thrive. And, as I've been doing this, some of the things that I've learned, one of the main things that I've learned is actually that I think that, the opposite of creativity, I think, is fear. I think fear is what kills creativity. And, that seems really strange as like, what does that even mean? But whenever you think about it, creativity is something that requires risk. It requires you to be able to take risks. And in order to do that, creative people have to feel secure in their jobs. They have to feel secure in their roles. They have to feel secure in some form of their own identity and their place. They have to have some sort of like foundational security in order to be able to take risks in their work, which is their creative work, right? And so if they don't have some level of like foundational security in their jobs and in their roles, then it's going to kill that creativity in for their work that they're doing. And so that's why I say that fear is what kills creativity and fear is the opposite of creativity. And so whenever I'm thinking about kind of your, question here, that is what I would say is like how you create the output that you actually want is you don't focus on the output, you focus on creating that safe place for real humans to thrive and um creating a like foundational secure area and space for creatives to work and flourish. And then once you have a place like that, then the creativity is gonna be it's just gonna outperform any other like team that you would have.
So in a way, you reframe leadership as stewarding an ecosystem of
Mhm,
where the people, the where you can be as an individual, be a fully human, including that it's
mhm,
fragile and the emotional and identity, but it needs
mhm.
the space that protects that fragile human and I would even say expansiveness or
Yeah,
exclusiveness of some one individual. But then the
yeah.
first thing that comes to mind is that the intersection with the inner state of the leader in that
Mhm,
context um, is real. Like
mhm.
you can't be just this is my job and that I perform as a leader and I create a safe space for my people. No, I think it really reveals who you are, and all your
Mhm.
insecurities are in a way out in the open. So how does that work?
Yeah.
That dynamic.
Yeah. Um, one of the things that I like to say is that my job is to be a chameleon. uh, because my job is to be kind of like, and I realize how unrealistic this sounds, but just stick with me. My job is to be like all things to all people as best as I can. So, when I have a team of people, sometimes um, sometimes one employee is going to need a coach, and sometimes one employee is going to need a mom, you know, and sometimes one employee is going to need a therapist. And sometimes one employee is going to need just a guide. And sometimes one employee is just going to need someone to tell them they can do it. And I realize it's not my job to be somebody's mom and it's not my job to be somebody's therapist, but um if you think about some high level concepts of those roles of like, what is a mom? It's somebody who can take care of somebody, right? And you can do that as part of a leader. You can take care of people. as a leader. A therapist, you can listen to people. Like that's what a therapist does. They listen and then they reflect back on what it is that you tell them. I sometimes do that as a leader, right? And so I'm not saying it's your job to be a therapist, but I'm saying some of those like high level kind of like roles that those types of individuals, those occupations have, like sometimes you got to do that a little bit as a leader. And so, and I know, I know that sounds crazy, but in some ways, like it's our job to be a chameleon, to be like what your team needs in those moments. And so, like if somebody needs me to be a listening ear in that moment, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to say, "Hey, I hear you. I hear that you're having a really hard time right now. Like let's talk about it. I would love to sit down and, tell me what's going on." And then we do that and then I circle back and say, "Okay, let's get your job done." Or, "Hey, like you have some personal stuff going on. But maybe you need a little bit of advice that I can put together." That's where I see like if you need a mom for a second, I can do that, different things like that. I understand.
Yeah, well,
You're smiling.
yeah.
I know. I realize this is maybe controversial, but it's not something that hasn't been done. So I'll let you respond.
Well, I'm just thinking like if you see leadership as your job and you define your role as a leadership, then
Mhm,
then your example illustrates, well, the other roles come with it. It's not just your role.
mhm,
So in a way, I
mhm.
feel a tension in the thinking in roles. Well, when I
Yeah.
zoom out in your answer, it is like, don't see leadership, being a leader as your job, but just see it as
Mhm.
being you. Then you don't have to
Yeah.
navigate between all these roles and you can just be you. And if
Mhm,
you are the most uh, welcoming, open version of yourself, then you
mhm,
will align with what the need is of the
yeah.
person in front of you. And
Mhm,
but if you do the metric afterwards, like, okay, today I had this role and that role and that role, and oh, I have so many roles. Well, then you become the chameleon or
yeah.
just you, and and I think that, but that must create quite some potential risk or maybe unintentional, that this stewardship of and trust of that environment
Mhm,
where, that you need as a leader yourself to be fully you for your people
yeah,
that need
yeah.
you to be fully you, but you will
Mhm,
unintentionally under pressure just fall back into controlling yourself as you will control other people, and you will try
mm,
to extract output of the whole system you are running. So
yeah,
how does that look like? And because that seems to me like something that is really always around the corner.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting because, um, I think that people work better on teams when they fully trust each other and, they are vulnerable with each other and they really trust the, like, leadership that they have. And, in a way, like, they're not fearful of the leader that is with them and working with them. They're inspired by the leader that they have and that works with them. Um, they understand the strengths and weaknesses, even that they understand that the leader that they have is human, but also like cares deeply about them as a person. I actually think that what that does is allows them to work even harder at the success of a project. And on the success of the team because they understand that it's not just a project, but they are working for the good of the entire group. They're not just doing it to like, you know, make a project good. They're doing it because they want to make Liz look good. And they love Liz, and they want to make us all look good because we're all a close knit group. And so, in some ways, this sounds really manipulative, but like in some ways, that strong relationship, I think, actually creates an even better output. And so, um, I think that's part of it too, is that having that close knit, like really kind of personal connection does a lot for the team and creates a stronger, more successful output.
This sounds in a way very organic and natural.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, because this is what you if you would define what's the ideal relationship with those around you, then
Mhm.
there is a mutual way of exchange, growth, um, carrying,
Yeah.
and expressing
Yeah.
yourself. And at the other end, at the
Mm.
beginning, you already mentioned like um, output is a bit
Yeah.
the monkey on the sleeve that the moment output becomes a priority. And don't get me wrong, the whole business without output isn't exchanging the value that is answered with a reward. So you can't
Right.
ignore the output. What you
Right.
mentioned, that not focusing on the output will increase the output. So
Mhm.
that demands, in a way, that you redefine success in a different
Mhm.
way. So how would you redefine success when it is
Yeah.
protecting the creative identity, relationships, instead of
Mhm.
optimizing output?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to say though is that there is science behind the fact that if your team is happier, if they have like a best friend at work, if like and like those types of things, it's like Gallup science, which I worked for Gallup for a while and subscribe to a lot of their science around workplace engagement that if your people are happier, their output is always better. And so I subscribe to that. So and a lot of that thinking around how I build my teams is part of that. It's part of caring for my team. It's part of building up my team. And so it's not just because I'm like I just love everybody and, I am just like a really nice person. It's I really am I really do want to be successful and I really do want the most highest performance and, like want really the best creative out of my team, but I just know that I, we both can win. Like the team can have a really good solid culture and we can have really good solid outcomes at the same time. And those two things combined is actually what like helps us both win. So
Yeah. Yeah. So,
so
so
yeah.
in your experience, that
Yeah.
because we talk now mainly about what the leader creates for the creatives and how that
Yeah.
pays back to the overall business goals.
Yeah.
And one of the measurements is that if someone personally grows, then that is
Mhm.
actually their biggest reward. But the
Yeah.
benefit are more than the sum of the parts of the individuals for the business. But in your
Mhm.
experience, what happens inside of the leader when they
Mm.
start shifting from control to
Yeah.
stewarding that trust and creativity?
um that's really interesting because when it first starts happening, you really have to get humble and realize that um the team and the success of the organization is more important than your own ego. Um, I listened to somebody once give a talk about this idea of like what what I as an individual am capable of versus like what we as a team are capable of, and it's just like exponentially more that we can do as a team. And so ever since then, and I heard the talk early on when starting my company, and so I've really tried to focus on like, killing that ego in me of, like, it doesn't have to be me up front. It doesn't have to be me winning and, being the number 1 and always, being the best and everything. And so one of the things that I've tried to do actually is, purposefully hire talent that is better than I am, because I'm like, listen, if my company is only ever as good as I am, then we're going to be super limited. Like we are only ever going to be like capable of this much. And so if I bring in people that are so much more talented than I am, and then I purposefully allow them to flourish, then we are going to be so much bigger and have better legacy. Like we'll have way better work. Um and so I had that's a huge piece of like as a manager learning to let go of that control and allow people to flourish and be their best selves. Um and you be the one that is just like holding people up, rather than being the one to like hold people down. And so it's honestly like a little bit of a process. And a lot of times it for me, it looked like as soon as that tiny little feeling of, like that check inside of me would come up of like, "Ooh, that feels weird," of like, "Ooh, she's getting the credit," or just whatever it was, I would be like, "Nope, shut it off. Shut that off," because rising tides raises all ships, and that's what I would tell myself. And then it's like a saying now that we say on in our team is like anytime one person on the team does well, the entire team gets better. Everyone gets better. The whole organization looks good. Um, it makes us all look good. And so that became like a really strong part of like our culture was like anytime someone on our team looks awesome, we all look awesome. It's good for everybody. And so that's that rising tides raises all ships is like a big part of our culture now. And again, like it's top down. Like it comes from me. Like that mentality, that idea of allowing other people to like have credit and have the stage, have the forefront, like, instead of me it comes top down, And, that's something I just had to learn, and, the other thing I think for me specifically that I had to learn was, like, learn where my lane was because, like, what I do is not something that anyone else on my team can do, right? Like, I am a coach, a leader, the one who's encouraging people, the one who is um, telling everybody they can do it, and the one who is managing clients and kind of like casting vision and leading the company. Whereas what my creative team is doing and my copywriters and my managers and those kinds of people, like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're in their lanes. And so a lot of it was about like each of us learning our respective lanes too. Like we had to figure out like kind of like get comfortable with what where your strengths really lie, and be okay with that, and not
Yeah.
try to like take over each other's lanes. So that was a big piece of it.
Yeah, well, I had 2 questions to go more deeper in it,
Yeah.
and I think you've already
Yeah.
answered them. So, my next
Okay.
question, that I was thinking about is what allows leaders to actively shape the future, uh, of
Mm,
themselves for their teams? And, but you already answered that, uh, being aware and letting
mm,
go your own ego.
mm.
Um Actually, I think your ego is an active promoter of the fear that you already said. That is the enemy of being creative yourself. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that let's chew a little bit on that. Like, how do I allow
Yeah.
my ego to go? Because, and you already mentioned that in internal pressure is actually the
Mhm.
real pressure, way bigger than the pressure we always tend to use as an excuse, and that are the changing circumstances from the outside. What you
Yeah.
mentioned now is
Yeah.
actually my ego that I
Yeah.
need to let go, because that the overpressure my ego creates is
Yeah.
actually, no, killing the safety, the trust.
Yeah. 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 You know, it's hard to explain how to do it other than, like, you just do it. I don't know. Um, so I think, for me, I think, you have to kind of have some of the revelation of, you know, if, like I said earlier, your team is only ever going to be as good as you are. And I just realized that I wanted my team and my company to actually be better, and I realized that, like, the idea of a we, like a, a capital we, um, could be exponentially better than just me as an individual, you know? And I think also the concept of, like, legacy, having legacy from the organization past me, um, I think that's only probably capable if you don't just have one charismatic leader, one generation of a single charismatic leader, but if you have something that can actually be passed down and you have a culture of um of allowing people to flourish,
Yeah.
and I think that is where true legacy and high performance really lives, because the idea of, like, one single charismatic leader who uh who is, like, kind of the only decision maker, the bottleneck for everything, and everybody has to, like, get everything approved by them, and it's all kind of like this uniformity type of thing based on that one individual. um to me, you're not creating a culture, you're creating just behaviors that are not um that are not going to carry on after that person is gone, right? And so the idea of creating a culture is when people on your team can actually take ownership for themselves, right? And so once you're able to do that, then that it's a vision that's outside of just one single charismatic leader, right? When people can actually grasp the vision, right? And it's not just one single person.
It's a great illustration of what we sometimes say too fast, like, don't beat the ceiling, but create a platform for
Yeah.
others to stand up. And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and like you already said, like, the other question that came to mind was, how do you deal with this complexity of all the creators? And I think you've already
Yeah.
answered it by, no,
Yeah.
if everyone knows their own lane, and
Mhm.
takes ownership for um, being effective in their own lane. So it's a combination of clarity that fuels effectiveness,
Yes.
and not feel threatened by someone else in another lane. Well, overtake you because they're
Yeah.
not overtaking you. They stay in their own lane, and
Mhm.
then together you just go forward.
Mhm.
But or that's already like when I have that image, I already think, the
Yeah.
swimming lanes in when one of my sons was early teenager, he was into competitive swimming,
Yeah.
and they ignored who was next to them because it was about them to get to the end. That's not the
Yeah.
image that is what you talk about. You said, no, know your own
Mhm.
lane. Don't compare yourself with
Mhm.
what's happening in the other lane. That
Yeah.
gives everyone the freedom and the space to own, and that
Mhm.
then you can tackle a lot of complexity because
Yeah.
it becomes really complicated when you try to manage all the lanes while it's not your competence, then you're back to the ceiling.
Yes. Yes. And I'm so glad you brought that up because, something else that has helped me because I'm actually a very competitive person. And so this concept has taken a while for me to really kind of get to, because I've always been like, I want to be number one, and so I've just always been competitive. Um, but something that really helped me kind of have this revelation of what you're saying of like the stage is big enough for all of us. Um, is I sing in a band, and so I think about, um, like, music and artists and things like that all around the world, and one of the things I realized is that I listen to tons of different types of music, tons of different artists, from Taylor Swift to Billie Eilish to, you know, Beyonce to, all different types of musicians and Noah Khan, right? And like artists and just like a vast array of different types of artists. And not a single one of those takes away from my love of the other one. And I realized there is more than enough room for all of these different artists, musicians, to have space for me to love them, you know? There's more than enough room, um, for all of them to have a stage, even just to me, just me, a single individual on this planet of billions of people, right? And so I realized that, you know, having this concept of like an abundance mindset of like there is more than enough like glory for all creatives to go around. There's more than enough room to for like any creative to have their day in the sun. There's more than enough space for all of us to have their our place on the stage. There's more than enough room for all of us on stage.
Yeah.
Once I kind of like grasped that concept, um, that really kind of helped me too with my like competitive nature because I realized we're not, I don't need to compete because there's room for all of us, you know? Um, and we all have a place on this stage. We all can have a place. And so that idea of like there's an abundant amount of space.
Mm.
Um, and
Well,
so that's been a huge kind of help for me too.
you create images in my mind, and I was just thinking, like, there's more than enough room to shine when
Yes.
when you shine inside out. If
Yes.
you are waiting or claiming the spotlight, You're just
Yeah.
reflecting. You're not shining. And I think
Yeah.
what you describe is in all the levels, creating that environment, knowing your swimming lane, celebrating together.
Yeah.
When the tide rises,
Yeah.
all the ships go up. Um,
Mhm.
yes, 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 but then it's time for you to shine inside out. Your
Mhm.
creativity, your ownership, your
Yeah.
expertise, your
Yeah.
trust in the environment.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what you said, dealing with if you're competitive, and I think most
Yeah.
entrepreneurs have that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
in competitiveness is that big danger that it becomes
Mhm.
first comparison.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 100%.
So if a leader is listening, and there are, and they realize they have been more focused on control and leading from a place of control than and
Mhm.
creating that environment,
Mhm.
what would be the first internal realignment to start changing that?
Mhm. Mhm. I would say pinpoint the people on your team that you can actually trust, and start doing that like in baby steps, because if you've done your job in hiring well, which hopefully you have, like there are people on your team that you should trust and that deserve your trust. Um and I think in many ways, once you start extending that trust, people will start taking more ownership. And I think when you truly allow that, it will surprise you what they are capable of. And at the same time, you have to make sure that you are open to their solutions and their ideas and like their way of solving things, because it's never going to be how you would do it. But like, what if it's like even better than how you would solve it? Um, And what if it's, you know, even if it's not better, like what if it's just as good,
Mm.
and give them chances, give them multiple chances. Um because I think if nothing else, it will help take off some mental load. you know, but I think that is where you would start by delegating some things with big trust to people on your team that you know you can. Mhm.
Yeah. So Liz, how can people
Mhm.
connect with you,
Yes.
stay up to
Yeah.
date when they and where they can find and get hold of your book? What's the best way to reach
Yes.
out to you?
Yes. So I have a website. It needs to be redone, but you can check out my website at lizhuntconsult.com. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's also Liz Hunt Consulting. And if you want to see a few more personal things, you can look at my Instagram. It's also Liz Hunt underscore consulting. So yeah, I look forward to connecting with you.
All the links are in the description of
Hmm.
uh, of the podcast. So I really encourage people to connect, and so that they are the first to know when your book is available. Um,
Yes.
to bring it all down, land the plane, whatever we want. Actually, I don't want to break the cycle. So I'll just, I'm just thinking like when this creativity is truly
Hmm.
protected
Hmm.
and your leadership is rooted in stewarding it rather than in
Hmm.
control, what are the three things that we talked about today become possible in how people work, create, and actually become the fuller version of themselves?
Hmm. I think a few different things can happen. Um, I think that your team really gets to see what they're capable of. I think it's um I think it's pretty beautiful because your team will be able to see like, "Oh my gosh, um I didn't even know that I could do something like that," you know? And they're doing it within the realm of like a fail safe, right? Like they're doing it in a safe place that even if they do fail, you're there to catch them, right? The other thing that happens is that you have a um like you have a place where you can offload some stuff. It actually brings quite a bit of relief for your own self because I now have built my team up to a place where I trust them so deeply, that um I can almost I can give them this much input and get this much, out of them because we've been doing it for so long. We've been working together for so long. And now we get each other. We've been trusting each other for so many years and we've built the culture that I've been talking about. And so like in a lot of ways if you do this for long enough, like, it's going to drastically change, what you have to, babysit and manage. So it's going to improve your life quite a bit,
Mm,
because you'll have a team of self-managers instead of you having to manage so much, right?
yeah,
Um, and then I think the other thing is just in general, you will, have probably the best work out of the team that you would ever have seen before. So,
yeah,
and the best relationships.
yeah. Well, the one thing that I want to highlight is if you work on your own blind spot,
Mhm,
what's happening on the inside,
mhm,
dealing with your own ego, then
mhm.
you will stop unloading that on your people, and you can
Yeah,
inspire them to do the same, so you can unload the work to them. So it's a bit
yeah,
like change what you unload on your people and
yeah,
stop making it your blind spot that they have to try
yeah,
to survive in. And with
yeah.
leaders, we don't like to talk about a blind spot because it's not what we
Mm-mm,
see when we look in the mirror.
mhm,
But like you said earlier, the first step is find those people who you can trust
mhm,
and be vulnerable and open so they speak into your blind spot so
mhm.
that it can shrink.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to thank you, Liz, for for your wisdom and your vulnerability in sharing more about how to create an environment where creativity can flourish.
Mhm.
And actually, you shifted the paradigm. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
was
for
so good to
all,
be here.
yes, and for everyone who listened, I trust this conversation sparked something. Something's resonated with you. And I hope you are vulnerable enough to share it in the comments. I love to read that. But I also want to invite you, if you can't wait for the next episode in our podcast series, just reach out and I will make sure you will get an invite for what we call the ALT dialogue, Authentic Leadership Transformation Dialogue, which is a peer circle where we together ponder about what is that leadership question that is knocking on our door, um, so that we find language together
Mhm.
and be provoked in our own thinking. And I really encourage everyone always to reach out and I'll make sure you get the details and I will see you there.